Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth your time and bandwidth. Today's game is Warhammer 40k Space Marine. The sequel to this cult classic is actually coming out, so I thought I'd take a look back at the PS360 era Slaughterfest. Is Space Marine still worthy of the Emperor's glory? Let's find out. Warhammer 40k Space Marine is a third-person shooter hack and slash from 2011, made by Relic, aka the guys that made two great Dawn of War games and then were sadly purged for heresy. You play as Titus, an ultramarine commander in a vanguard squad of 3 set to a Factorium planet to repel an orc invasion. Of course, things get out of hand quickly, and at about the halfway mark, Chaos of the Corn flavor shows up to the party, but this doesn't change Titus's life goal: purge all Xenos with extreme prejudice. And kill you shall. As an ultramarine, you're basically a demigod clad in a battalion's worth of armor and armed with weapons powerful enough to end wars on their own. You always have a pistol with unlimited ammo, but can swap 3 slots with carbines, bolters, heavy bolters, short-ranged meltas, and more. You also have a cache of grenades. Ranged combat is a coverless affair because, come on, you're a Space Marine. You are the cover for the Imperial Guard behind you. The game spawns hordes of greenskin orcs to try and take you down, and you'll need to prioritize headshotting ranged units, stronger brawlers, weird boys, or big beefy mini-bosses as part of your crusade. While shooting is always great, Space Marine's real combat revolves around melee. There's 4 weapons in the game: a knife you'll have for about 5 seconds, the iconic chainsword, an axe, and the 2-handed thunder hammer, which limits your ranged abilities. Melee combat is much more Dynasty Warriors than Devil May Cry, with you having only a handful of combos, but then being very effective against the hordes that stand against you. But the real reason why melee is core is how health works. You have a rechargeable overshield, but that's really just to deflect ranged attacks most of the time. Your health doesn't regen on its own. Instead, you have to hit an enemy into a stun state and execute them to regain health, a la Doom 2016. The trick is you aren't invincible during this execution, meaning timing and positioning is key, as a badly timed execution may net you less health than when you started. All this killing happens across a somewhat brief 6 to 8 hour campaign, where you'll pretty much be moving from area to area killing stuff, then moving to the next area to kill more stuff. The game had a ton of multiplayer modes on launch, which I played way too much on the 360, but unfortunately today I found no public matches. And really, that's Space Marine. It's exactly what it says on the tin. You are a Space Marine, and this game aims to please IGN reviewers by making you really feel like a Space Marine. What do I like about Space Marine? Well, this game is pure cathartic violence distilled to its essence. Melee feels incredibly strong and punchy, weapons kick and shred enemies like ballistic missiles, and executions are hilariously over the top. It's an absolute power fantasy even on the harder difficulties. Additionally, this game's pacing is relentlessly quick, adding new enemies and weapons every few chapters all the way up to the very end of the game. And lastly, it really nails the 4K over the top and massive everything look and feel, even if everything's kind of brown. And while its characters aren't exactly deep, they do more than enough to make you like Titus and his violent but surprisingly noble view of the universe. When it comes to the bad, if you want to do something besides murder Xenos, firstly, some Inquisitors are here to have a friendly chat, and second, you'll be disappointed because the combat is basically it. Additionally, the latter portions of the game where you face off against mostly ranged units really shows the weakness of the combat system. When you can't melee and execute to get health, it turns into a pop and shoot cover game, and it isn't very good at that. And last, I usually don't mention cost to time ratio, but Sega is greedy, and when the sequel was announced, they bumped the price of the PC game from $20 to $60, which is just heresy. You're buying a 6 to 8 hour single player campaign, so make sure you don't pay more than $20. As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother. And if I was being completely objective, I'd say Space Marine was a fantastic but flawed 7 out of 10 game that could have used more variety, some combat refinement, and less brown and gray locations. But this is my review, and I choose to praise the Emperor because Space Marine still absolutely rules. Despite its flaws, it's an incredibly cathartic, brutal murder sim for its short run time, and ultimately is just a ton of fun, which, hey, isn't that what matters most when you play games? So in conclusion, yes, I absolutely recommend Space Marine for the Emperor. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Did you play Space Marine back in the day? Are you gonna play the sequel? Please let me know what you think in the comments, but regardless, go out there and purge some Xenos.